MACHHOLZ, and you are listening to Looking Up with Don. This is the Looking Up with Don podcast, episode number 37 for the week of September 16th, 2020. The related website for this podcast is donmachholz.com. That is spelled DONMACHHOLZ.com. 2 H's. What's up in the sky this week? As our week begins on Wednesday, September 16th, the moon is nearly new, being new on Thursday, September 17th at 10:59 Universal Time. The day before, Wednesday morning, September 16th, try looking for the thin crescent moon about 24 hours before new moon. The mid-northern hemisphere is favored for this viewing. After new moon, the moon passes into the evening sky, and you might want to try to see the thin lunar crescent on the evening of September 17th or 18th. The southern hemisphere is favored for this. The moon then moves through our evening southern sky, growing brighter each night. By next Tuesday, it will be 40% full. This is called the waxing phase, as the moon is getting brighter and more full each night. When the moon is in the morning sky, it is dimming each successive night. That is called the waning phase. Will you be able to see the International Space Station this week, which for our purposes begins Wednesday, September 16th, and runs through Tuesday, September 22nd? It depends upon where you live. This week we have 5 zones. If you live north of 45 degrees north, the International Space Station will be in your evening sky, sometimes twice per night, beginning midweek and going through the end of the week. Greenland Canada, get out there this weekend. If you live from 30 to 45 degrees north, the ISS will be in your evening sky all week, sometimes twice on some nights. Most of the U.S., show your friends and neighbors. If you live between the equator and 30 degrees north, the ISS will be in your skies for only the first few days of the week, mostly in your morning sky, but it might also make an appearance in your evening sky. Central America, India, Yemen, that is you. Between the equator and 35 degrees south, the ISS will be in your morning sky beginning halfway through this week. Brazil, Australia, that is you. South of 35 degrees south, the ISS will not be visible this week. New Zealand, southern Argentina, that is you. To determine where it will be in your sky, go to the website heavens-above.com and enter your location, then click on ISS. A decade of comets. We are doing a series on my 1985 book, A Decade of Comets. This 110-page study of the 33 comets visually discovered by amateur astronomers from 1975 through 1984 can be downloaded free from my website, donmachholz.com. Last week was Part 2A. This week is Part 2B. Part 2 of this book is about each of the 33 visual comet discoveries during this decade, and Part 2 is broken into 3 parts, 2A, 2B, and 2C. You may download this week's part free from my website. It is Podcast 37, A Decade of Comets, Part 2B. This week we cover comets number 13 through 24. Last week I mentioned how Doug Berger discovered Comet Kobayashi Berger Milan, he found it accidentally while observing the globular cluster M2 in July 1975. Doug Berger is also known for inventing something in 1973 that we celebrate every year, Astronomy Day. In fact, if you go to your favorite search engine and look up Doug Berger, Berger, astronomer, you'll learn a lot about Astronomy Day, not so much about the comet discovery. Here's an odd fact that we will cover again when we discuss part 5 of this book, but it's relevant here. Now, the 33 comets have 45 names on them, as some of the 33 comets have 2 or 3 discoverers. Meanwhile, some of the comet hunters found more than one comet during this decade, 1975 through 84. So, a total of 26 individuals visually discovered one or more comets during that decade. Now, here's a surprising thing. 21 of the 26 individuals found their first comet during this decade, 1975 through 1984. 6 of the 21 went on to find their second or third comet during this same decade. By the way, of those 26 comet discoverers, 4 lived in the southern hemisphere, while 22 lived in the northern hemisphere. To recap a bit of last week, one comet was discovered in September 1977, the first visual find in 18 months. Then, as we go into 1978, Bradfield found one in February, and Rolf Meyer found one in late April. Then, no comet discoveries in May, June, July, and August of 1978. Now fasten your seatbelts because suddenly things got very hot. How hot? 5 comets in 6 weeks. This hot streak was followed by no visual comet discoveries for more than 8 months. Go figure. Our first comet this week is the 13th of the 33 we are examining in this book. It was discovered on September 1st, 1978, and is called Periodic Comet Hyenda Campos 1978J. Each comet is given the year, plus a letter designating the order of discovery or recovery for that year. So a Comet 1978J was found in 1978, and the letter J indicates the 10th comet recovered or discovered in 1978. In 1995, that method of naming comets changed. Toshio Hyenda, Haneda, of Japan, 69 years old, one of the oldest comet hunters, found this, his first comet, after searching 463 hours over 16 years. He was using a 3.3-inch or 85 millimeter refractor. He had been sweeping the western sky, but clouds forced him to sweep the north, and then the southern sky, where he discovered the comet. 9 hours later, Jose de Silva Campos of Durban, South Africa, swept up the same comet using his 5-inch, 13-centimeter refractor. Now, Campos had spent 116 hours to find this, his first comet. The comet was 10th magnitude at discovery. A few oddities about this discovery. One comet discoverer was from the northern hemisphere and one was from the southern hemisphere. That's very rare. The comet was 141 degrees from the sun in the evening sky. Normally, comet hunters do not sweep that far from the sun. Finally, this was a periodic comet with an orbital period of just under 6 years. The comet was brightest at discovery, and it approached both the Earth and the sun, but it did not brighten as it expected. pre-discovery images were found from some of the major observatories, and one on August 10th, 1978, 3 weeks before discovery, showed it at a 13 magnitude to 14 magnitude object, and one taken the next day showed it at magnitude 11. I swept over it on August 9th, 10th, and on August 30th, which was 2 days before discovery, without seeing it. If it was brighter than magnitude 10.8, I probably would have found it. When Hyenda found it on September 1st, he said it was magnitude 10. Campos, 9 hours later, said it was magnitude 9. Could it have been outbursting shortly before discovery? Meanwhile, after discovery, I saw the comet on September 7th and 9th, but could not find it on September 8th. At that time, amateurs were estimating the brightness of the comet between magnitude 9 and 10.5. I had estimated it at 10.4. The comet faded rapidly after that date. By the end of October, it had faded to magnitude 15. The comet was never seen again. It was to return in 1984 to 5 and was not seen. It was to return again in 1991 and also was not seen. That comet is now considered lost. The next comet was discovered by me on Tuesday, September 12th, 1978. I was sweeping the pre-dawn sky with my 10-inch, 25-centimeter reflector at 36 power with a 2.8 degree field. This was my first named comet discovery, coming 1,700 hours in 3.7 years and 691 sessions. The comet was found 2 degrees south of the bright star Sirius, and it was magnitude 10.7 at discovery. It is known as Comet MACHHOLZ 1978L. My notes show that I swept over the comet without seeing it on August 29th and again on September 8th. On that latter date, 4 days before I actually found it, I picked up the open cluster 2309 about magnitude 10.5. The comet has a hyperbolic orbit and is not expected to return. The next comet was found on October 1st, 1978 by David Sargent of the Entrance, New South Wales in Australia. It's known as Comet Sergeant 1978M. This was his first named comet discovery and came after 600 to 700 hours of searching. He was using 15 by 80 binoculars to find this comet, and it was found in the morning sky, only 35 degrees from the sun, and it was rather bright at 5th magnitude. The comet performed well for the next few weeks and then faded rapidly by late November. If the comet had behaved normally, it should have been discovered in late July or August in the northern evening sky at magnitude 10. My notes show that I swept over it without seeing it with my 10-inch, 25-centimeter reflector on July 2nd and again on July 29th. We have 2 more comets in this stretch of 5 comets in 6 weeks. The next one was discovered on October 9th, 1978 by Fujikawa of Japan. He was using his 20 by 120 binoculars and had been searching for 3 years and 525 search hours since his last find. This was his 4th named comet discovery. 2 days after Fujikawa found this comet, Comet Surnas of the USSR found it using 20 by 120 binoculars, but he was unable to properly relay the information of his discovery. This comet was found in the morning sky, 39 degrees from the sun and at magnitude 10.0. It was 20 degrees high in Fujikawa's sky when he found it. That is about typical for visual comet discoveries. Between mid-August and mid-September, the comet was magnitude 11.7 and brightening to 9.7 in the southern evening sky, but it was not discovered. The comet was diffuse, and that makes discovery difficult, and perhaps its magnitude was not consistent. As the orbit was determined, it was noted that this was the same comet as found by William Denning in 1881. So the name was changed to Periodic Comet Denning-Fujikawa 1978N. It was initially reported as Comet Fujikawa. Since the comet naming rule change in 1995, the name is not announced until the orbit is determined, so the comet does not need to be renamed if it is found to be a lost returning comet. Dr. Brian Marsden pointed out that the comet was missed in October 1916, September 1960, and September 1969, all times when it should have been discoverable. With an orbital period of 9 years and not seen for almost 100 years, there were other times it came by, but those appearances would not have been as favorable. But with that orbital period of 9 years, it was expected that the comet would return every 9 years. It was not seen in 1987 or 1996, nor was it seen in 2005. But it was picked up in 2014. This seems to be a transitional object going from a comet to an asteroid, and sometimes when it comes by, it's more active as a comet, and other times it's nearly invisible as an asteroid. One day later, on October 10th, William Bradfield of Australia discovered his eighth comet, Comet Bradfield 1978-0. It was in the morning sky, 32 degrees from the sun and magnitude 8.4. Bradfield was again using his 6-inch, 15-centimeter refractor and had searched for 75 hours in the 8 months since his previous find. Following discovery, the comet continued to move south, fading to magnitude 11 within a month. Now, prior to discovery, it was behind the sun and emerged into the morning sky when it was discovered. Many morning sky comets are found this way after they emerge from behind the sun. That is still true today with the very few visual comet discoveries that we have. Generally, those are comets that are coming out from behind the sun. Now, Bradfield's comet discovery was the third one found in that lunation, the third found in 10 days, and the fifth in 6 weeks. A very busy time for comet hunters, and no comet hunter made more than one of these discoveries during this stretch. Now we're going to coast through the next 8 months with no visual comet discoveries. Was everyone taking a break, or were there no comets to be found? Would you like to guess who found the next comet? None other than William Bradfield of Australia. He found it on June 24th, 1979, 1979C. Bradfield was again using his 6-inch, 15-centimeter refractor and had searched for 98 hours since his previous find 8 months prior. This was Bradfield's 9th comet discovery, and Daniel Green pointed out that with this discovery, Bradfield passed William Reed's record of 8 finds from South Africa between 1918 and 1927. With 9 discoveries, Bradfield in 1979 became the most successful Southern Hemisphere visual comet hunter. By the time he passed away in 2014, Bradfield discovered 18 comets, all found south of the equator and all having only his name attached with no shared discoveries. This comet was found at magnitude 10.2 and 44 degrees from the sun in the evening sky. It was 16 degrees high in Bradfield's sky, and he found it 40 minutes after astronomical twilight. It was the day of new moon, so the moon had been out of the evening sky for nearly 2 weeks, meaning someone searching that area probably could have found it earlier. 3 months later, on September 20th, 1979, Rolf Meyer found his second comet. It was found with the 16-inch reflector owned by the Royal Astronomical Society of Canada near Ottawa. Meyer found this comet 17 months and 29 search hours after his previous find. All of his comet discoveries, and this is his second, and he was to later find 2 more, were found in very few search hours. At discovery, this comet was faint, magnitude 11.8, the faintest discovered comet of the 33 that we discover in this book. It was found far north at 68 degrees declination. It is known as Comet Meyer 1978I. This comet was followed by amateur astronomers for the next 4 months, peaking at magnitude 11.5. It will return in 391 years. Our next comet was discovered on Christmas Eve, December 24th, 1979 by William Bradfield of Australia, 1979L. He was using his 6-inch, 15-centimeter refractor and had searched 67 hours since his previous find 6 months earlier. With this discovery, he had found 3 of the last 4 visual discoveries, and his third discovery in 15 months. An early orbit suggested this might be identical to the comet of 1770, Roman numeral 2. However, as more positions came in and the orbit was refined, it was found this is actually a different comet, and it will return in 239 years. The comet was magnitude 5.0, that's rather bright, but it was only 26 degrees from the sun as seen from the Earth. This comet at 5th magnitude was bright, but in the morning twilight sky, and Bradfield found it 24 minutes after astronomical twilight, it can be difficult to see. We have seen with Comet Swan and Neowise that even a bright comet can be difficult when seen in twilight. For Bradfield, this comet was 11 degrees above his southeastern horizon in southern Scorpius. This was Bradfield's 10th comet discovery. It seems that this comet could have been found earlier if its brightness curve were normal. My records show that I swept the area that it was in on November 5th, 7 weeks before it was found by Bradfield. It should have been magnitude 9.2 and 28 degrees from the sun. That night I picked up M9 and 6356, but not the comet. So either I simply swept over it, and it was magnitude 9.2 and a few degrees above the horizon, or it was fainter than what the pre-discovery prediction would say. The comet did flare in brightness on February 3rd, 6 weeks after discovery, so perhaps the brightness of this comet was not running on prediction. Following discovery, the comet performed well, visible in binoculars first in the southern hemisphere, then in the northern hemisphere. By the way, this is the 4th time that I swept over an area that contained an undiscovered comet that was later discovered by someone else. Add to that the comet I did discover, which I swept over both 2 weeks and again a few mornings before I eventually found it. 5 misses in 5 years is probably not a record, but it was disturbing to me as I was out there hundreds of hours per year and missing some of these comets. But I knew that at least I was looking in the right area and at the right times. The comets were just fainter than what I could detect with my 10-inch 25-centimeter reflector. End of editorial. Now back to the comets. It would be 7 months until the next discovery, and it was by 2 amateur astronomers sweeping side by side in the former Soviet Union. They are Comet Surnas and Joviaris Petiauskas. Surnas was using a pair of 20 by 110 binoculars and had searched for 880 hours to find this, his first named comet. Petracheus used 12 by 80 binoculars and had searched for about 100 hours to find this comet. It was discovered on July 31st in the evening sky in the constellation Ursa Major at magnitude 8.5. This was the first named comet discovery for each of these 2 men. Surnas had found comets Bradfield in 1974, Kobayashi Berger Milan in 1975, and Denning Fujikawa in 1978. But in each case, it was after the original discoverers, and he was unable to get the word to the Smithsonian Astrophysical Observatory in time. This discovery was not confirmed for 3 weeks. This was because the comet faded after discovery. Communications to the Smithsonian Astrophysical Observatory were slow, and it was moving 3 times faster than originally reported. So the rest of us were trying to find it, and we were all having trouble. I recall those nights. But it was found and confirmed. Comet Surnas Petrauskas 1980K. It continued to dim, but it did show a short anti-tail for a few days. That tail pointed towards the sun and was due to the geometry of the comet, sun, Earth. It was actually material shed by the comet that appeared to point towards the sun. Our next comet was discovered on November 6, 1980 by Rolf Meyer. Comet Meyer 1980Q was magnitude 10.3 and 75 degrees from the sun in the northwestern evening sky. Meyer was again using the 16-inch reflector, and this was his 3rd find, coming 25 search hours and 13 months after his previous discovery. Following discovery, the comet dimmed slightly, then went into the morning sky where it brightened to magnitude 9. On April 26, 1981, it passed directly over the star Arcturus. It is possible that this comet could have been found earlier, but it wasn't. Prior to discovery, it slowly traveled through the North Polar region, and this area is not covered much by visual comet hunters, so no one found it until Rolf Meyer did. Our next comet, 1980 T, was discovered by William Bradfield of Australia, his 11th find. This was found in the morning, only 22 degrees from the sun and magnitude 6. It came 51 weeks and 113 search hours since his previous find. And this comet's position at discovery was about 1 degree from where he had found his previous comet 1 year before. Instead of using his 6-inch refractor, Bradfield used his 7 by 35 binoculars. Now, this is the smallest aperture for any comet discovery in this study. He swept the morning sky on December 6th. Then it was clouded out until December 17th. On that morning, he did 1.5 hours of sweeping with a 6-inch refractor. Then he turned to the 7 by 35 binoculars to check the twilight sky. 18 minutes after the start of the morning astronomical twilight and 7 degrees high, he found this comet. He then swung his telescope to the area and saw the comet with a tail. By the way, all of his other finds were with the 6-inch refractor except for 2 in which he used a 10-inch reflector. We'll discuss one of those next week. The comet put on a good show. As it went behind the sun and entered the northern evening sky at magnitude 5, it displayed a tail 5 degrees long. I recall setting up a telescope in my garage, which faced west, and seeing it from my home in San Jose, California. My late wife Laura saw it and said it was the first comet she had seen, which actually looked like a comet. The final comet that we will discuss this week, number 24 of this decade, is Comet Panther 1980U. Roy Panther of Walgrave near Northampton, England, discovered this, his first comet, on Christmas night, December 25th, 1980. He had been sweeping for 601.5 hours, over 699 nights for 33 years to find this comet. He began comet hunting in July 1947 with a 3-inch, 80-millimeter refractor. For this discovery, he was using an 8-inch, 20-centimeter reflector at f4, 35 magnification. Through the years, he missed 3 comets by only a few degrees. This comet was found about 3 degrees east of the bright star Vega. Comet Panther was found in the northern evening sky at magnitude 9.7. On February 12th, it passed about a half a degree from the north celestial pole, a good time to photograph it since with a longer exposure photograph it will not trail. Pre-discovery photos showed the comet was magnitude 12.5 on October 28th, and then it brightened rapidly in 1 month, down to 10.3. That concludes comets number 13 through 24 of the 33 comets found from 1975 through 84. We will cover the final 9 comets next week. Now for the comets that you can see from your skies this week. The positions in right ascension and declination for these comets are available on podcast 35, Comet Positions. The first 3 are found on podcast 37, map 1 and map 2, with map 2 being a close-up of 2 comets, Comet 2017 T2 Pan-STARRS and Comet 2020 F3 Neowise are tracking each other in our southwestern evening sky. Both are magnitude 11 and dimming. Periodic comet 88P Howl is also shown on podcast 37, map 2. This again is a close-up map showing the area, and Comet Pan-STARRS and Neowise are on this map too. Comet Howl is magnitude 10 and slowly brightening. It passes near the globular clusters M80 and M4, but by time it gets to M4, the moon will be a factor. Try to see these 3 comets before the end of this weekend while the moon is still not too bright. We have a 10th magnitude comet in our morning sky. It is called Comet 2020 M3, Atlas. All letters in the word Atlas are capitalized, as it stands for the Asteroid Terrestrial Impact Last Alert System, Atlas. Discovered on June 27th, deep in the southern sky, this comet is moving northward, and it is well placed just before dawn. Podcast 37, map 3, is a close-up map for Comet Atlas. It will be closest to the sun in late October and closest to the Earth in mid-November. You have been listening to Looking Up with Don, podcast episode number 37 for September 16th, 2020. I'm Don MACHHOLZ. Once again, the related website for this podcast is donmachholz.com. That is spelled DonMachHolz.com. 2 H's. God willing and pod willing, I'll be back next week for another episode of Looking Up with Don. We will discuss what's going on in the sky and look at more comet discovery stories from the book A Decade of Comets. All that and more. Thank you for listening. See the sky this week. I'll see you next week.